there, my name is Marley Bird, and in this video I will show you how to make the Boxy Bento bag. This bag was designed by my friend Quaylen Stark, and it is fashionable and fun. If you can make half double crochets, you can absolutely make this stylish accessory. The first thing you need to do is get that free pattern. I've put a link to it in the video description box right below this video. When you have your free pattern, gather your materials, join me back here. We will get started on how to make the square, and then we will jump into all the little extra bits you need to know. Trust me, you can make this bag in no time. Every time you get a new pattern, make sure you take a look at the full materials list to be certain that you have the recommended yarn and hook for this pattern. Pay attention to the measurements and the gauge so that way you can adjust your hook to obtain the correct gauge if necessary. And then pay attention to the special techniques. If there is a special technique written that you don't know how to do, it might be that you need to seek out some extra instruction or just watch my video. This bag is made up of 3 simple squares. There's a middle square and then 2 edge squares that have this handle created when we get to rounds 18, 19, and 20. All 3 of the squares are constructed the same, and once you get past round 2, it is just a matter of changing colors as you follow along. So really, we need to understand round 2 in order to complete all 3 squares. Let's go ahead, grab our yarn and our hook, and get started with the middle square. The pattern is written for a magic ring. Place the tail of your yarn in the palm of your hand and wrap your working yarn around your forefinger and your middle finger and come back up. Cross over that yarn and turn your hand over. Take your hook, go underneath the front loop and grab the back loop and pull it up just like so. Your fingers are through the circle that you will be working into, or the ring. So what I want you to do is where the yarn crosses over, I want you to take your hand out and pinch that crossover point, okay? So now you have a loop on your hook and you have that pinched point. See that pinched point? I'm going to hold it there and readjust my yarn. Okay, so I have a loop on my hook and I have my pinch point right here and I have this big open ring, okay? That's where we will create our stitches. So for round 1, we chain 2. So chain 1, chain 2. This chain 2 does not count as a stitch. However, at the end of the round, Quaylen has us join with a slip stitch into that second chain. So I will grab a stitch marker and I will place it in that second chain just so that I know where it is when I come back around, okay? So I'm placing it into that V right behind the loop on my hook. Once I've created that chain 2, I can jump in my pattern, which means I will do 2 half double crochets. So I yarn over my hook and working directly into that ring, I will insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, and draw through all 3. That's 1 half double, and I do a second half double into that same ring. Now I will chain 2, and the instructions tell us that we're supposed to do all of that 4 times. So we're going to do 2 half doubles and a chain 2, a total of 4 times into that ring. So that was 1. I will yarn over, insert into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3, yarn over, insert into that ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3, chain 2. So that was 2 times. I need to do it a total of 4. There's 3. And there's 4. Now what you can do here, if you've done everything correctly with the magic ring, you can take this tail and grabbing that last half double crochet you did, just kind of hold it in place and pull the tail so that it pulls this string around the inside of those half double crochets. And what it does is it closes up that center and it makes it so that the last chain you did is coming closer to that first set of 2 chains you did. And what we are supposed to do now is slip stitch into the second chain at the beginning of our round. So that's the stitch we have marked. You see that? That's why I marked it. I'm going to take my marker out. I'm going to hold that spot, take my marker out because it's easier to get into, put my hook into that chain, yarn over, pull that loop through the chain and through the loop on my hook. I now have a start of a square. Each one of these chain 2 spots represent a corner of the square. All right, that's round 1. Round 2 is the important round because that is the one you will be repeating all the way to the end of this square. Okay, are you ready? Let's do this. We begin with our chain 2, and that does not count as a stitch, but we will be joining with the slip stitch into that second chain. So I'm going to mark that second chain so I know where it is. Now this is where my set of instructions will begin my repeat. So I need to put everything inside the parentheses into this chain 2 space. So that means I will have a half double, a chain 2, and a half double. Now I need to do half double crochets into each stitch over to the chain 2 space. All of this is what was written inside of the brackets, and I need to do all of that a total of 3 times. So I will repeat it. I will put a half double, chain 2, half double, and then work half doubles over to the next chain 2. So that was 2 times. This will be my 3rd time. So half double, chain 2, half double, and then half double crochets over to the next chain 2 space. Now that that's been completed 3 times, I continue on with all of the instructions outside of the bracket. That means I will place a half double crochet and a chain 2 and a half double crochet all into that chain 2 space. And now I will half double crochet over to that original chain 2 that I started the round with, and it's marked. I want to slip stitch into that marked stitch. Okay, I'm going to slip stitch into that marked stitch, pull that through, and that completes round 2. As you continue on, rounds 3 through 5 use the same color, and it's just a repeat of round 2. I think the toughest part about this particular square is remembering that the original chain 2 of the round does not count as a stitch. It's very easy to accidentally count it as a stitch and then get completely off. So use your stitch marker and be very vigilant to make sure that you do not count it as a stitch. Let's do another round, repeating round 2, but this time it will be round 3, just to make sure that you understand how this square is constructed. We've already done our slip stitch, so we're beginning round 3, which again is a repeat of round 2. So we will slip over to our chain 2 spot. So I will go into that back loop and slip over, and I'm already to my chain 2 spot, so I can slip stitch directly into my chain 2 spot. Okay, can you see that? Now I begin with my chain 2, and this is again where I will take my marker and I place it into that second chain I just created. It's the loop behind, or the stitch behind the loop on my hook. And I begin. So I will put a half double, chain 2, and a half double all into that chain 2 space. And now let me get some yarn here. I will put half double crochets into each stitch to the next chain 2 space. And with each round, we are increasing 2 stitches on each side of the square. So I have 4 half doubles, and I'm to my next chain 2 space. So I half double, chain 2, half double. Work my half doubles across again to the next chain 2 space. And then work my half double, chain 2, and then half double. My yarn is creeping up on me. Work over to the next chain 2 space. Did I do that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then half double, chain 2, half double, and then work over to where we started the round. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we join with our slip stitch. So I will just come over here, join into that second stitch. And there you have it. Okay. When you get past round 5, it's time to change colors. So what I want to do is I want to change colors right now, pretending that it was time for us to change colors in our pattern. And what we would do is we would slip stitch over to our chain 2. So I will slip stitch over to my chain 2, and it's at this point, instead of yarning over with my color I was using, I will yarn over with my new color and pull up a loop and pull that through the loop on my hook. Now I would carry on and work this round with my new color, and I can cut my old color. I am not a fan of carrying up my old color, especially for the inside of a bag. There's too many chances for your keys or your pen or your notebook to get caught on it. It's better to just cut your yarn and reattach it later on when it's time to change colors again, in my opinion. So at this point, we would chain, let's see, chain 2 because we've already slip stitched over. And then once again, it's a repeat of round 2. So we have our half double, chain 2, and then half double. And then we will work our half doubles over to the next chain 2 space. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because it's 2 more than the last one we did. And then we're to our chain 2 space and we do it again. So we half double, chain 2, and then half double, and then work our way around. Okay, I'm going to get to the next chain 2 space, and I'm going to pause for a second because we are actually going to jump ahead because it's a good point to do so. All right, so this is the point in the pattern where I just did my corner, and then I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which would have been my edge. So it's time for me to do my next corner. The thing here is that this is exactly where you would be when it's time to do something different for the edge squares. Remember when I said when you get to rounds 18, 19, and 20 of the edge squares, it changes a little bit so that way we can create the handle of the Boxy Bento bag. And it's really simple. It might seem a little tricky though. So it's at this point, I'm going to show you on the little swatch we're using right now, how to work up row or round 18. Okay, let me show you how this works. When you get to this point on round 18 for the edge squares, this is where you have to do something a little bit different. You can see that we have repeated this 2 times, and now it says half double crochet in the chain 2 space, And then we're going to chain 22. And then we will half double crochet in the third chain from the hook and in the next 19 chains, which will give us a total of 20 half double crochets. And then we will half double crochet in the chain 2 space again. So what this will do is give us a long sort of edge coming out that can tie at the top of the bento box. So let me show you how this would work up. You would do your half double crochet in the chain 2 space, and then you will chain 22. Now I'm not going to chain 22. I'm just going to do a fair amount here because no reason for me to do the full amount. But you would chain 22, and then in the third chain from hook, so 1, 2, 3, you would work a half double crochet. And then you would do that into each chain all the way until you get back to where it all started, which will give you a total of 20 half double crochets, just so you guys know. All right, let's get all the way down here. And that one right there. So we've created like this little kind of poker out sort of thing. Now I will half double crochet into this chain 2 space, and then I resume my pattern the rest of the round. So what this has done here, instead of doing that chain 2 right there, I've created the start of a handle. When we come around on the next round, we will work on the back edge of this handle that we've started with those open loops. And then we will create a corner right here and then come back down this path. So we're getting this little sort of bloop happening here. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's get our 6 half doubles here. Of course, you will have more because you'll have a lot more stitches working around by the time you get to round 18, but I can do it on this little swatch because it's all the same thing. All right, so let's see here. So those are our 6, and then we have to do our corner over here. So there's half double, chain 2, half double, and then let me get these in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. We will half double crochet in the second chain that we created. Notice I didn't put my marker in there. It makes it a little bit tricky. We might want to go into that there, but that's actually the top of that half double. So it's the chain behind it is actually the correct chain. And that's why I always try and mark it, because it just makes it so much easier to see. Okay, so there we go. We've done that. You would do the next round, which would be round 19. Again, it starts off because it's a round 2 repeat, right? So I will work into the back loop, working my slip stitch, come over to my chain 2 and do my slip stitch. And this is just like everything we've been creating, only now we have more stitches along the side to work with. See, there's nothing new here. As long as you are keeping track of your numbers, everything will work out. Remember, each round you are increasing 2 stitches along each side. So this one I should have 8 half double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8. Work my next corner. There's 1, chain 2, half double, and then we got to get to the next corner. And the way it's written is it says to do these half double crochets over to the chain 20. And you might think to yourself, wait a minute, I had to chain 22, I didn't chain 20. Well, you actually have 20 half double crochets there, and Quaylin was talking about the open loop remaining of those 20. So what I'm talking about here is when I worked into the chains, you see that open loop I have here, I'm going to work into those. So that's what you're working across to. And then working into that open loop there, we will work our half doubles. So we're just continuing our pattern up through this little blip that we have here, which is our handle. And when you get to the top, it mentions that it wants us to do a turn essentially. So ideally, let me put this in here so we can see here. It says half double crochet across to chain 20. That's what we just did from the last row. Half double crochet in the bottom of each chain. So that's what I just did right there. Then it says 2 half double crochet, chain 2, 2 half double crochet inside of chain. Half double crochet in each half double crochet across other side of chain. So my thought there is here at the top, we have this initial skipped chain 2 that we had. So my guess is that in this side of chain here, that's what he's talking about working into for this turn. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work into that whole space, and I'm going to do a half double and another half double, and then chain 2, and then do that again. So put 2 half doubles into that space. Now I can work back down these half double crochets that I created, and I had 20 of them, all the way down, and then continue on to the next chain 2 corner. Can you see how this is working up here? It's pretty easy once you kind of walk yourself through what you're creating, and you can kind of visualize how these stitches bumped out are going to work. Can you see that? Obviously this would be a lot longer with a lot more stitches, but right here we've created a new corner out here. And then when you do round 20, once again, you'll just work around and you'll treat this part here just as a corner as you've done all the others, okay? Can you see how that works up? Does that make sense? Okay, so ideally you know how to create this square. You know how to start the square, you know how to do round 1, round 2, then it's a repeat of round 2 all the way until the end, changing colors when it's indicated in the pattern. For the middle square, it's just a repeat of round 2 all the way through round 20. For the outside squares, it changes up because that's when we need to create the handle. Once all of your squares are completed, you then will seam them together with a simple whip stitch or a mattress stitch. Totally your choice. It's at that point that we have to play around with this sort of origami construction to see how this is constructed. I've got a little sample worked up so that we can play with it. Let's take a look. I've worked up this little tiny swatch here, and I don't have the handles on my swatch, but I've placed markers where the handles would be, okay? So this swatch represents this diagram right here. I've essentially put together the 2 edge blocks with the center block here, and I'm looking at the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, can you see that? I've just done a generic whip stitch right here. Now, according to diagram number 2, we need to fold our piece. Now, I'm going to be honest, this diagram was very confusing to me, and it wasn't until I got my squares to this point that it made sense. So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to take this part of this square. It's convenient that these are 2 colors so you can really easily see. And I'm going to bring this part up, okay? Now I'm going to take this entire square and this part of this square and fold it over to meet over here. Okay, you ready? So I'm folding purple over on top of red. Okay, can you see where I am? Now I'm going to take this purple and have it fold over the pink to meet over here. Oh, does that work? Nope, that doesn't work at all. So we undo that. We actually want this to fold over and meet over here. So this square is different in that we fold against the line, okay? Can you see that? So we fold against the line and that meets over there. Let's do this all again. Okay, so I'm back to the beginning. I have my squares spaced out and we're gonna begin here. We take this first one, I will fold it in half and fold it up. Now I will take this one, fold it in half, and fold it down here, and it will take this one along with it. So I fold it in half, and it comes down there. Now this one folds in half this way and meets up over here. By doing that, you will notice that where I've put my markers, those are where my handles would have been. And now both sides of my bento box bag are created. So all I would do now is take a tapestry needle, the same one that I used to whip everything together, and I would whip stitch my squares together. So I can just pull them through and begin to whip stitch the squares together. And ideally, you should have the same number of stitches on each square, so you can just go through each side equally all the way up. And I am using a different color yarn here just so that you can see the stitches, but you would want to use the same color yarn as the last round of your squares, okay? I don't know if you want to see this all the way done, all the way up, but anyways, once you've seamed this one up, okay, so that would put that there, you would turn it over, you would seam this one, and then that would leave you with this remaining bit up here, which are your handles, and you just tie those together in order to get that really cool bento bag look. I told you that this is not as confusing as it might seem. As long as you know half double crochets and you keep track of where the beginning of your rounds are and where you need to keep those corners, you're good to go. I hope you enjoyed this video. You learned something new. I really would love to see your finished project. Make sure you share with me on social media. Use hashtag #MarleyBird or hashtag Yarnspirations so that way I can find your project and smash your like button. I love having all of you here on the channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, and that way you will be up to date whenever we release a new video or go live. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.